This is the first time, in my career where I've stepped away from the game multiple times, but this time it's just forced through injury. And I'm not going to lie, I'm struggling a little bit with patience to come back. I want my body to just snap my fingers and be where I was. So what advice would you give?
I would say that I think before you're a tennis player, you're a human. You should treasure these moments because you're not going to play tennis forever. So you shouldn't feel like you're rushing to go back. And instead, you should just enjoy the little moments that you have.
Welcome to Hana Kuma's Good Trouble, where we celebrate those who have the courage to disrupt the norm. I'm Nick Kyrgios, professional tennis player and your host. In each episode, we'll sit down with game changers who aren't afraid to rock the boat. We'll dig into their stories and the waves they've made in their worlds for the better. Welcome to Good Trouble with Nick Kyrgios. It's not always the loudest one in the room who causes the most good trouble. Countless times, my guest has shown us what it means to be a professional. She's a mother with 4 Grand Slams on her resume, a fashionista. The first Asian tennis singles #1, a former Sports Illustrated Sportsperson of the Year, and the first female tennis player to light the Olympic cauldron during Tokyo 2020. Carrying the torch is what she does, as she shines an even bigger light on issues surrounding women, mental health, and the Black community. With her second serve, a media mogul, she's putting her name and production company, Hana Kuma, behind the ideas she wants to be seen and represented in the world. When I think of a champion, through and through, I think of my guest, Naomi Osaka. And with that, I ask Naomi, what does good trouble mean to you?
My definition of good trouble is someone that has the right intentions, but might not necessarily do it in the best way or what's defined as a good way.
I've always admired the stuff you do, on the court, but especially the business side of things. And I feel like it's really super impressive. You've won Grand Slams, you've achieved amazing things on the tennis court, and now you're a bit of an entrepreneur. What was your inspiration behind Hana Kuma?
Big boss over there that's whispering stuff, Stu. He and I, we've had and Carly too. We've kind of had a really long relationship where they kind of feel like my second mom and dad in LA. And we kind of trust each other with a lot of discussions. And I think we were watching LeBron and Mav, and those guys are kind of my role models in a business sense. So just watching them, and then Stu came up to me and he was kind of like, why is there no woman kind of having a production company? And that discussion started, and I think now we ended up here. So
do you think there's an opportunity for women athletes out there to dominate, businesses the same way as, say, someone like LeBron has?
I definitely think, and I also think role models are a super good example. I feel like for me growing up, I've seen Serena do so many amazing things, and it's kind of made me want to do the same things as well. So I feel like there has to be people just constantly at the forefront so you can look up to them and you can also dream to achieve the same things. So
was Serena and Venus kind of your 2 role models growing up? To aspire to be the tennis player you are today? Yeah,
definitely. I would say that I wouldn't have played if they haven't played, so.
You love designing clothes and exploring the world of fashion. What does that provide for you that the tennis world doesn't?
I've actually never thought about it that way. I've always just thought about them being 2 completely different things. I've never thought about comparing them, but I think fashion, for me, it's just a way of expressing myself. And I also feel for me, I've made a lot of fashion mistakes, but I don't know.
Please tell me you've seen some of my haircuts. I had 3 different colors in my hair at once. Talk about fashion mistakes. My God, what was I thinking?
But people remember it. I think
yeah, it's true.
Memorable things are good, I would rather someone dress up in something insane than a shirt, a jeans and a shirt. So.
It's risk taking in a way.
Yeah.
So what's the design collaboration that you've done that you're most proud of?
I think my favorite might be with Levi's.
Oh, yeah?
Because I don't know why they trusted me so much, but they allowed me to sketch things out and present it to them. And I think my favorite part about that was the thing that I was really passionate about and the thing that I was I know this is going to do really well. And I had dreams when I was sketching it actually did do really well and it sold out. So I was really, really happy about that.
And I guess, this collab in general, I saw this and I was like, it's definitely a must. How'd that come about?
I've been super fortunate to have my own line with Nike for a couple years now, and I guess kind of learning each other, and we've had a lot of talks, and they've kind of asked me what are my likes and what are my dislikes. And I think on the sleeves here, yes, Haiti and Japan. And for me, my cultures are very important to me, and I try to like incorporate them in everything that I do.
So let's go more into, in depth about your tennis and I guess sporting career at the moment. I remember the first time I beat, Roger, Rafa, Novak. I mean, those wins for me are kind of define who, how far I've made it in my tennis career. But when you met Serena and Venus and you beat them, like what was that like? Because I think everyone has a bit of a different experience, but because they were your idols as well, what was that like for you?
I'm not sure, because I feel like growing up, I dreamed the moment so many times, and then to finally experience it in real life, it kind of felt like I was watching myself on TV.
Yep.
So a bit out of body, but also, I don't know, a little sad, because I felt kind of sad for them. Like I'm sure they were gonna feel sad losing to me, because I was kind of a nobody at that moment.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't think that, Federer, Djokovic and Nadal ever thought they'd lose to me. So I think they look back at it and they're like, how the hell did we manage to lose to him? But
were you able to like digest that happened?
I think about how I didn't give my full self to the game. I wasn't super professional. I wasn't training all the time, and it kind of just happened. It happened really early in my career. I mean, beating Rafa, I was ranked like 150 in the world, and he was world number one, I think, at Wimbledon, and it kind of just happened. And then it kind of gave me this belief that I was like a kid from Canberra, that I almost just wanted to show everyone that you could do it. Like you could just get there and rattle the scene a little bit and beat the best in the world. But I mean, when it's all said and done, the cool thing is about what you've achieved or what I've achieved on the tennis court. No one can take away those wins. I think you look at those three players and they're the greatest of all time, with Serena and Venus. And to say that we've had a little moment in history when we've got the better of them on a certain day in tennis is pretty cool. Yeah, I guess I've had plenty of time to digest it, but now I'm learning from you, someone like you that's taken time away. It's refueling me to get back out there, and seeing all these guys have success feels like I can do that as well. So yeah, you've definitely helped me with that as well.
When did you beat Nadal in Wimbledon? Was it like
2014, I think?
Okay.
No, 2015. 2015, I think I beat Nadal. I've beaten him a couple times though, 3 times to be exact. No one's counting though.
So I guess since then I've seen you around the site and stuff, and I've always thought to myself, like, that's like my brother from a different universe, you know what I mean? There's not a lot of like melanated folks in tennis.
Yep.
So I just like kind of feel an alliance sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I feel when I see you, that's why, I remember me and my girlfriend were watching you live, in US Open last year when I was in the hotel watching you, and obviously I resonate with some of the things you've done in the sport. And yeah, I feel like the difference between you and I is you kind of dealt with that whirlwind a little better. The spotlight for me kind of consumed me a little bit. Tennis is one of the biggest sports in Australia, so it really took a toll on myself, my family, and we didn't really know how to deal with anything. We weren't rich growing up, so having some money come through and all these types of things kind of took us all by storm. And I guess I just didn't deal with it the best. And I guess you had, I'm not gonna say like the balls to do it, but you kind of took the time away from the sport that you needed to do, that I was afraid to do. And I guess that's, I've had some great achievements, and maybe if I was like you or dealt with my anxiety, depression, or, my tennis and I guess my mental health a little better, maybe I would have been more successful, but I wouldn't change a thing. I look back at my career and it's been so fun, and I feel like, I could definitely see myself getting back to a level where I am competing for Grand Slams, but I wouldn't change a thing because, as you know, everything that you've gone through in this career or your life, you're going to educate so many of the future generations coming up. So I do feel that too. Obviously, every time you play, I want you to win. And yeah, so I appreciate that. Was there a defining moment in your career when you kind of knew that you had like the greatness, not to be just like a top 10, top 5 player, but almost win Grand Slams? When did you truly believe that was going to happen?
I think after I won Indian Wells. Just because it was 7 matches, and I knew that 7 was the amount of matches that I needed to win a slam.
Yep.
And I also played really, really good players then too. So
in sense of like ranking your best achievements, what's your favorite like Grand Slam that you've won? What's your favorite moment if you had to rank them?
I think the 2020 US Open for me, just because there was so much going on and we were in a bubble, but I think I learned a lot about my team. And also I feel like for me, when I was at that US Open, I was thinking in my head, like, it's been a while since I won a slam, so I would really like need to win one again.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine having that mentality.
But yeah, I think that US Open.
But I mean, being a mum now, does that kind of change your perspective on playing? Like when you're out there now knowing that there's someone, I mean, she's not going to be in the stands clapping her hands for a while, but the fact that she is now watching you, I guess, does that change your kind of feel on the game?
So far, like practice-wise, I just feel like I don't have time to waste. So I'm trying to be really efficient with everything. And I think when I was younger, I could hit for like 3 hours and kind of waste time in the middle or whatever.
Yep.
But now I know there's someone waiting for me at home and I have to take care of her. So right now, I just feel like every second counts.
And for the millions of fans that are going to watch this, you know, I think they don't really understand how important a team is. You know, in the tennis world, you're alone out there for potentially 3 to 4 hours, and you got to do it every day. If you're playing bad or having a bad day, you can't sub out. You can't just run out and tell coach to sub you in. So I feel like people don't really understand how important the support crew is. And you've said over and over again is that your family, your team, you keep bringing them up. So is it true that your father was inspired by, you know, the Williams sisters and their father's story to support you?
Yeah, my dad definitely was like Venus and Serena's dad. Mr. Richard kind of gave a blueprint of what to do and he just had to follow it. And I think in a certain way it's true, but he was definitely inspired by them. What
do you do now in your personal time to kind of make sure that you're recharging?
Play PlayStation.
Yep. What games are you playing right now?
I like Overwatch.
Overwatch, yeah.
Apex. Sometimes I'll play Fortnite. I really like Skyrim.
Yep. I know all those games.
How do you like to decompress?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like you, I used to travel with my PC, or not my PC, but a laptop or a PS5. Pretty much the majority of my career, I used to just get back to the room, skip my complete stretching, cool down, eating. I would miss all those things just to get back in my room and start gaming. But yeah, I think that's the one thing that I knew that was always going to be there for me. Obviously from Australia, we travel 7-8 months a year at one stage in my career, and I really struggled with that. And I felt like my PS5 or something was just a link to home. Every time I got on the PS5, there was someone I knew, or it was just like, it was a recharge thing for me. And people never, I guess normal people, when they think about video games, it's like, oh, it's a waste of time, it's this or that. But it's like really, it calmed me down because I knew that the next day I had to go out and play in front of a lot of people. But that's what I'm doing at the moment on the games. What's like soundtracks that you're listening to at the moment? What kind of music? Is it kind of giving you relaxing vibes walking out there? Are you trying to get super pumped up? Like what are you listening to at the moment?
Oh, I never listen to relaxing music when I'm walking on the court. Okay. It really has to be up tempo. But normally just a lot of like hip hop or rap. But I don't have a like certified playlist until I start the tournament. That
just reminds me, one time, the day that Kobe passed, I was playing Rafa, 4th round of the Australian Open, and I still remember that day. It was horrible. And then I texted Nike. I was like, I need a Kobe Bryant jersey to walk out, in front of the crowd today. I actually wanted to play in it, but the tournament didn't let me to, obviously. But usually at that point in my career, I was walking out with headphones, and that day I had my headphones on, but I didn't want to play. I didn't play any music, so I was walking through the tunnel with Rafa behind me, and I walked out. It was all bluff. My headphones are a bluff, and I just listened to the crowd go nuts. And that was one thing I remember about that day. Was the day I never listened to music ever again before I walked out, because I loved hearing how much Kobe had obviously left behind, but the crowd was so loud when I walked out, and I always wanted to remember walking out to courts and remember hearing how much athletes like us we are appreciated when we walk out in the stadium. So that was a special moment for me. But everyone talks about the mama mentality, and that's what he was remembered for. But you had that relationship where it was personal. So what did he really teach you, and what have you taken away from him?
I remember when I first met him, and we kind of sat and had, I don't know, like 3 hours maybe of a conversation. And one of the things I always remember him telling me is like, the people around you are noise, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like if there's news and media and whatever, like you're a lion and all of that are like the flies buzzing around a lion's eyes and you only have to focus on your prey. I was like really inspired by that because sometimes like when I sit and I think about my career, I feel a little sad because I'm like, I wonder if, you know, like he's kind of disappointed in me and how I handled things. But I think like just trying to refocus on kind of being a lion and like wanting your prey and wanting to strive and get better is something that's hopefully I'm doing better at.
I think he would be proud of you, that's for sure. What have you learnt, you know, taking the time away and now coming back? How important has that been for you?
I think this time kind of changed my perspective a lot. I feel like for me, I'm a person that needs to have purpose. And there was like, for the past 2 years I was playing tennis, I didn't really have one. And now I feel like I've kind of gained my momentum and gained happiness again.
Do you think taking that time away was almost, you know, more important for you to regather your thoughts and actually reflect, look, I'm doing great, and now reset to go again? Do you think that that was one of the most important things you've done?
Yeah, I think definitely this time away has really given me space to kind of be grateful for everything. I mean, I feel like there's one way to like say you're grateful, but then to actually have the feeling and kind of appreciate everything and know that, you know, when you were a kid, you would have dreamed to be in the position you are in right now. It's a very like happy feeling for me. And I don't know. I also think just having a daughter and having her look up to me and wanting to show her everything and all the beautiful places in the world is really cool.
That's amazing, because I remember, I mean, watching you when you were having your success. There was a time when I just saw so many smiles and you were having amazing success, and it was so good, you know, obviously as a tennis fan, but to see that, I loved it. And then obviously I saw you during the times that you were struggling mentally, and I could see how it was eating at you being out there. You weren't, you know, enjoying yourself. And it kind of was personal to me because I think you remember that time we did that podcast together in New York. And, you know, when you took that time away from French Open and you took a step back and then you waited to be mentally ready to come back again. For so long, I was dealing with those similar things, and I was forcing myself to kind of play. You know, I thought, well, I'm in French Open or Wimbledon, I have to play. I can't arrogantly take time away. But that's how I viewed it, but I didn't look at it as actually looking after my mental health. But yeah, you've inspired so many athletes worldwide. And for me, you know, I think ever since that time, I've shortened my schedule. You know, I've only played where I feel like, you know, I'm going to purposely play and get the job done and enjoy it. So you should be proud of, you know, the way you set the tone for other athletes, definitely.
What do you miss most about competing?
I guess pissing people off. You know, I love stirring shit up. That's what I truly do miss about competing. I miss going out there and proving people wrong.
I feel like that's a lot of negative energy.
You know, people just want to see something crazy with me, like hurricane a racket over the fence or something. They actually want to see you play good tennis. As you were climbing up the ranks, you know, you went to world #1, and you weren't just #1, you were the first Asian player ever. You know, what does that mean to you? And you said, you know, you had Japan, Haiti on, you know, the culture is so rich for you. What did that mean for you, your family, Japan? What was that like?
It definitely means a lot. I think for me, I have this thing about making history, and I don't want my name to be erased, and I want to be remembered at least in one small way. So I think that just kind of relieved me in a little bit. But I think other than that, of course, I'm so happy that my parents are proud, my grandparents are proud, but I'm the type of person that's not really satisfied easily. So I have to keep doing things, and in that way I put a lot of stress on myself. But for me, that's kind of how I live my life.
You know, women's sports, you know, they're having huge moments. I remember I was in the World Cup for the Soccer World Cup in Australia, and I went to a couple games, and the stadium was completely packed out. And it was probably one of the best atmospheres I've honestly ever been in. And, you know, thanks to athletes like you, do you feel like, you know, women and shy will have more opportunities when they grow up to kind of, you know, succeed in women's sports?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like for me, at least, that's the ultimate goal. Like, I know that I'm not going to be here forever, and the only thing is just to keep making life easier and better for the generation that comes after you. And I think, well, I would hope that at least Shy has more opportunities than me.
And what's kind of good trouble are you going to as Shy kind of grows up? What are you going to try and, from your career on the court, from what you've dealt with from the media, some of your key moments, what good trouble are you going to kind of instill into Shy when she's growing up?
I feel like everyone's so unique. Like everyone has their own path and everyone goes through things that no one else can understand. So just like allowing her to be herself and be unique and stand up for what she believes in.
Mm-hmm.
And also it took me a lot of years to figure this out, but you have to treasure yourself a lot and you also have to stick up for yourself.
The good trouble I've been in, would you ever think that Shy could be watching that and giving it to her game maybe one day?
I'm not so sure about on the court.
Okay.
But I've seen a lot of things that you've done off the court, and I've also seen you be really kind to like ball kids and stuff.
Ah, that's nice.
And I really appreciate that.
I appreciate it. How do you see all these business things that you're involved with keep evolving? What's your future goal for these companies?
I think my future goal is for them to get as big as they can get. And I think I'm really lucky. I'm surrounded by people that know what they're doing and they're very capable. And I also just love learning and soaking up information. So yeah, just hopefully become a household name. That's the goal.
Have you got any advice for me? Because this is the first time in my career where I've stepped away from the game multiple times, but this time it's just forced through injury. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm struggling a little bit with patience to come back. I want my body to just snap my fingers and be where I was. So what advice would you give to me as a tennis athlete? What would you tell me?
I would say that I think before you're a tennis player, you're a human. And like everybody that's surrounding you now, they love you for you as a person rather than you as a tennis player. And it's kind of like you're forced to enjoy this moment now, but you shouldn't feel forced to. You should feel like, you should treasure these moments because you're not going to play tennis forever. So you shouldn't feel like you're rushing to go back. And instead, you should just enjoy the little moments that you have.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Are there things that you want to do in the future?
I always knew that I had some sort of, not talent, but interest in doing something outside of tennis my whole career. I always felt like I was a bit more than that. Good trouble for me right now is where my focus is. And I can feel I'm very passionate about it and I want to make sure it's done correctly. And obviously I have a part ownership in the NBL team back home and I just want to see the sport grow, I think, in Australia, but globally. I want there to be all the pathways in the world to making it into the NBA. But yeah, I don't have as much as you on my plate. And right now, especially with an injury, a lot of my energy has to go into making sure I do things right with that as well. So yeah, a lot of exciting things coming up in the near future for sure. What would you tell the future Naomi Osaka about to win multiple Grand Slams? What would you looking back, and what would you tell that future person? What would you say?
I would say, no matter what, remember who you are and don't doubt yourself.
Powerful. Well, thank you for coming on, Naomi. I really do appreciate it. This has been, as a fan and as a fellow tennis player, it's been amazing. So thank you for coming on Hana Kuma and Nick Kyrgios' Good Trouble.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. For more Hana Kuma's Good Trouble with Nick Kyrgios, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.